Hello, hello, hello. There's my bump as I get comfortable. We're going to be joined in a minute by Lorna from Wild Nutrition. She's the head of nutrition at Wild Nutrition, a supplement brand. And we're going to be talking about all things pregnancy, nutrition and supplements. So it's kind of apt timing. I can tell you what I've been doing over here in my second pregnancy. And we can quiz Lorna. I've got lots of questions actually that I put out yesterday on my stories. So I've pulled in the most common ones that people want to know more about. And I've got my own questions for Lorna. So as soon as she joins us, we will get started. Amazing. This is Lorna Driver Davies, everyone. She's the head of nutrition at Wild Nutrition, a supplement brand that I've been before I met these guys. Actually, I say before I met these guys, but yeah, I've been using this for many years. I love that it's food grown, and I love that I don't have to think too much. For me, it's just this pregnancy support, the new mother range. I just take the same thing for preconception, during pregnancy, and postpartum. My eyes going to water. But I've also loved the immune support over the years. That's one of my go-tos. And actually, Lorna, we chatted a minute ago because we met years and years ago.
But I was saying to you that this was like the early days of you getting bone broth out there, which we're so lucky that you did because you're so amazing. And yeah, so the rest is history. A good thing.
I have put eyeliner on, everybody, and my eyes are obviously not used to wearing any makeup.
You look gorgeous, right?
So,
Jasmine, you look.
Excuse me while I hunt for a tissue, or make me look like Lorna's made me cry. Oh, I haven't got a tissue, but I do have a baby grow, so I'll just be using that. One of my
Jasmine, thank you for having me. This is such a delight, and I feel like we have the same ethos about life and food. This is a really great chat to have. So thank you.
Totally. I mean, you're a nutritionist, but you have a functional medicine background as well as herbalism. And you were mentioning that your mum, here we go again, your mum's also
it's in the blood. You can't take it out of me.
And so your approach, it's so interesting to be able to talk to you about this because, for years, supplements have been basically this kind of thing in a pill that became the fix-all, cure-all. We don't really understand them, and the whole time, or a lot of the time, we've actually been taking synthetics, which are not something that our body recognizes. So although it looks like it fits all the RDA, the government recommendations, it's not necessarily, well, as we say in Ayurveda, it's not about what you take in, it's about what you can actually digest.
Absolutely. And with the food nutrients, the food grown nutrients, you don't need them at such high levels. So one of the reasons the synthetics are so high is it's kind of like, if you throw enough at the wall, some of it might stick, type of thing. And actually, because they're very often using forms of nutrients which are not very bioavailable at all, lots of people will have difficulty in even doing something with that nutrient. So if you've got genetic variations in the way that you metabolize certain nutrients, like we'll talk about folate as well, folic acid. So, it's all about having something that's completely natural. Your body can recognize it, do something with it. It doesn't become a waste item. Like, what's this? Not sure what you are, going around the body, sort of not getting absorbed. And I think anyway, from a really nice perspective, you can think if food is what's most important, isn't it? Like food is medicine, and what's in food is so complicated because it's just beautiful that God or Gaia or whatever you kind of into has made this amazing stuff. So the idea that you then try and replicate something that on the other side that's so synthetic, they're not the same thing at all. And our bodies are clever and knows the difference. So this is about the gentle approach that's actually effective. Best things come in small packages, don't they? So yeah.
So bioavailable being the operative words, that how it how we are able to absorb or metabolize it and use it. So I don't know if anyone listening in here is pregnant, but congratulations if you are, or trying to get pregnant. Lorna, the first thing, let's talk about why Wild Nutrition is different from other companies. We've touched on the food grown states. So we've got, also with that as well, we don't use any fillers and binders. So in a formula, you're only going to have these amazing nutrients. We love using, I know you love ashwagandha, so we use, not in the pregnancy products, but in other products, we're using lovely medicinal mushrooms,
herbs like ashwagandha and turmeric, so like lots of Ayurvedic herbs and plants. So you always get that kind of holistic blend together. And then, you know, we are formulated by Henrietta Norton, who co-founded the company 10 years ago. And Henrietta's formulating is extremely clever, because, you know, just because you qualify as a nutritionist doesn't mean that you're a natural formulator. So there's very...
Not at all. And it's so important what's being used together, because it can have...
Exactly.
It can
And the thing is, this is like, you know, formulations are complicated. Like think of a very complicated piece of like orchestral music or making a perfume. It's all about how everything sort of slots together. So she's had all this, you know, she had all this kind of background clinical work, because also in the supplement industry, I think for your listeners, sometimes what people do is go, oh, I want to make a product for the brain. They make it in like 2 seconds. They don't care what they put in it. You have no idea who has formulated your product. And so we're only in-house formulations. I started to do formulations as well. So it's all in-house, no white labeling. You know exactly who is making your products. And I'd say it's a nice marriage or balance between the science that you need there, but also it's about real people with real situations. And actually we offer free consultations. And talking about pregnancy, the amount of women we've spoken to over that 10 years, I've spoken to colleagues, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of listening to women going, what do you need? So it's kind of like taking that science and putting it with the everyday logic of practicality of making a product and putting them together. And then I think the final thing to say is that, you know, we've always been sustainable, but a few years ago we got our B Corp certified, which is really important. So we have a whole process of, if you buy the products, you get the box once, and then after that, you then would get a refill. So you
get a dark brown bottle, so this stops light interfering, and then you get the packet similar to this, but this is actually the wild gummies. You get the refills, and then you can refill that, because actually as wonderful as glass is, it still needs to it's heavy to ship. You know, when you're talking about from a carbon perspective, it's heavy to ship, and then you've got to recycle it or clean it or whatever. So just having a bottle once.
Actually, even if you then do want to recycle this, what we did was we made this label very easy to take off. And we actually have very sweet customers that send us really great photos of, like, they've got like pens in it, or someone was throwing some like cress out of it, and like, so you know, this is and also
press head as well.
This keeps things nice and fresh as well. So and you know, basically, so B Corp, really picky about where that we formulate. Everything's totally natural, no fillers, no binders, and also really rooted in women's life stages. So the idea is that we support you, say like from your early 20s all the way through to your kind of post-menopause years and everything in between.
And I think it's worth saying here, because I think this is quite exciting for anyone who wants to find out more, is that you also offer free.
And you can get a lot done in 15 minutes, and you can ask anything you like. So we have general consults, but also if you've got a particular area, like say fertility or pregnancy, hormones, you know, perimenopause, you can book a consultation with an expert, and each of the nutritionists who do those different consults have different skills. So if you have a pregnancy consultation, that person is an expert on pregnancy. There's no, you know,
amazing. You're talking directly to the brand here, so it's not just some kind of, you know, random. How do I know this is suitable for me? You can double.
I mean, we're always so touched how we hear all these different kind of stories and whole people's lives and stuff. So it's a very like safe, reassuring, kind of cozy service. You have an expert there, confidential, really easy, telephone or Zoom, your choice. Yes.
Wonderful. So my next question would be, for anyone who's, you know, because, you know, my mother probably didn't take any supplements, her mother before that. Why do we need these extra supplements during pregnancy, especially when I know that we've got the kind of the pregnancy grey that you can get. I've certainly had that at times. And you also have the pregnancy glow. So there's lots of things going on in the body. Why do we need the supplement, especially if we are into
So I think one thing to say is that these days it's harder to be healthier. So in the generation of, say, our mums, and then our great grandmothers, you know, from that point, so grandmothers and great grandmothers, food unfortunately is not as good as it was. So we have to eat a lot more of the good stuff to get
And why is that? Our soils are depleted.
Soils are
depleted,
so farmers don't put back key nutrients. Like, so for example, you have a worldwide soil low level of things like selenium, safe for the immune system. Yeah. So you've got that going on. You definitely have the fact that, you know, we all know that life is a lot more intense and busy. So I think it's, even if you have good intentions, it's not always easy each day to eat really well. And I'm sure you're the same. We're all normal people. I have days where I think I didn't get enough veg. You know,
and not to mention the nausea, and not to mention the, I think with Mahi's pregnancy as well, my daughter, my toddler, I mean, I went through 3 days of French toast. Then I went through 3 days of sardines on toast, and then I couldn't even hear the word toast. You know, it's just, and so then I was confused about what to eat because I couldn't quite. There was just so much going on in my body. The smell of cooking, I could smell the fridge being opened from upstairs. So my other half got it in the neck quite a bit.
Yeah, particularly so in your, you know, in that first trimester where eating can be a challenge. You've also got to make sure that you've got the right nutrients coming in, because there's so much. So there's a lot going on in that first trimester and the last, and the middle bit is the slightly easy part. And I think many women who may not even necessarily know that they're pregnant really early on, or it was a bit more surprise, or it happened more quickly than they thought, you're sometimes on the back pedal, because particularly if you weren't, say, doing what we'd ideally recommend, which is that you have at least 3 months, 6 months in preparation, you might be going, oh wow, okay, that's happening, all right. So and then you've got this twin experience with, is what you're saying about not being hungry. So you've got soil quality, you've got busy life, you've got the challenges in that first trimester that, you know, tricky. And also, you know, I'd rather that someone is not slaving over the stove. Go and have a nap, go and have a walk. Do you know what I mean? I think food's important, but also everything kind of in balance as well. Yeah, and I think
and I think it's really reassuring, sorry, for people who, like you said, didn't know they were pregnant, you know, didn't know. Mine with this one, the second one was actually both a surprise. But I remember thinking, oh, we just been on a 50th camping holiday where I just kind of overdoing everything. And then I was quickly into a nauseous period in 3 weeks, I think. And you just like, am I getting enough?
Yeah, and I think also that in today's world, I mean, my mum was 27 when she had me. And I think in today's world, just because life is like that, women have babies a bit later. So you have to also think, what's your life been like up to that point? You're not going to have the same energy necessarily that you do when you're, say, like 38, 39, 40, 41 than you would have done, say, at that age. So we're not saying you're getting old. I think it's just actually good to be honest and be realistic. You probably need a bit more support if you're now over the age of 35 as well. Yeah.
Yes. Pregnant in my 40s here, so definitely that's reassuring. And also just because for me it's if your body's taxed and especially having now a toddler and your body is prioritizing the baby. Right?
Definitely. And the thing is, you made a very good point. You are already running around after a toddler. So I think also, you know, women who are listening who are also now on their second or third or whatever baby. And, you know, the tricky bit I tend to find is that actually the pregnancy sometimes can be what it is. But the almost like the more difficult part to make sure that you've got your supplements in is actually once you've given birth. Because what happens is things just can like go to the wall. So you look after the baby, but you don't look after yourself enough.
Yes, and that's a common. I mean, being in my 40s, so many of my friends and family, cousins, etc., had babies before me, and I just watched them prepare their baby's nutritious meal, and then I'm like, "What are you eating?" I didn't think about that. Why didn't you cook at the same time as
I didn't think about that. It's like if they're eating something nice, you should be probably eating the same thing. It's fine, you know. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And actually, in those early stages of pregnancy, also, you're more likely to get morning sickness if your blood sugar's not great. So it's this kind of tricky thing of like, kind of need to eat, it's difficult to eat, and so it goes around like this, and therefore you do want those nutrients in a multi to come in the back and also continue to support blood sugar. And we tend to find women do so much better on our products at this point because again, you're probably more likely to feel not so great taking synthetic nutrients when you've got nausea as well, because it's a lot more work for your body to try and process that item. Yeah.
And with synthetics and things, sometimes you take them with food, right, for the digestive process. Whereas with food grade, food grown supplements such as Wild Nutrition, it's there.
It's already done for you. Yeah, you haven't got to take it with food. You can if you want to, but again, you don't need it to digest the. And also, people ask about nutrient competition. So with the food nutrients, just like if you've got like a piece of spinach or something, the nutrients in it aren't going to compete with each other because they're kind of naturally there anyway in that form. Where you get nutrient competition is where you start using synthetics, and that's why in a multi you could argue that some of the nutrients are cancelling each other out as well. Yeah.
So I think I've heard a lot of people talk about you're actually just peeing out half the stuff anyway, aren't you? That's not a good use of money. So pregnancy and new mother support supplements. I've got the baseline formulated with a range of B vitamins, including riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B12, plus the vitamin C, the magnesium, the zinc, thiamine, which is B1, folate, which we'll come back to, iodine. So we've got, I know that I've got all of that. And then there's the whole, you don't want too much vitamin A in the body, which is not in, obviously vitamin A exists in the food that you eat, but you don't want to overdo it.
Because at some, if you go up at like little higher levels, it's actually not safe for the baby. But in a way, on the other side, you still want beta carotene that will convert to vitamin A, because that's important for things like baby's eyesight, for example, development, and your immune system as well. And you mentioned iodine. So iodine is low in diets across the world, but if you are a particularly vegan, iodine is hard to get because iodine is very rich in dairy products and meat and fish. And so I know we mentioned this earlier, particularly if you are on a special diet, so you've got food intolerances or something happens, whatever, so you're missing food groups out, but also if you're vegan and vegetarian, you will not get some of those nutrients in the same way that someone would easily get quickly from, say, eggs and meat. So I'll also talk about choline. So choline, you get a lot of choline, for example, in the yolk of an egg, but if you're vegan, you're not, choline is very, very, very low in the diet, so you must make sure you supplement it. And choline is important for adults, but when we're thinking about baby's brain development, choline is absolutely the really important stuff to lay that whole brain down for that future brain as a child, teenager and adult later on. So it's even more important if you're missing out some food groups, because also with, say, some of the B vitamins, the active form of them will also be much more bioavailable in, say, animal byproducts and, say, meat. So if you're not having those and it's a vegan diet, you want to make sure they're coming in through a supplement, if that makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, so iodine's available in seaweed, but it's not, if you're not coastal, you're not living off the land or the sea, it's not something
like the amount you have to eat a lot of seaweed, whereas, say, if you're having, say, like eggs and meat, you get a lot all in one dose. So I think, definitely supplement, particularly if you're missing out some food groups.
So in terms of whether this pregnancy and new mother support, I'll hold it up so everything's in there. So the idea is that this is everything that you need, which is great, because I did look at other supplements with Mahi, and it was like every 3 weeks or every 3 months where I had to change it again, and I had this kind of, oh gosh, that's really expensive, and now there's loads that I'm not taking, and I've got to get the next batch and things. And then for postpartum, it's everything's in there. So postpartum, we're talking about the 3 months postpartum, 6 months if you're still breastfeeding.
We tend to say also go on how you feel, because I'll talk about iron for a second. So iron can become a real issue, because what happens in the last trimester is that you need to have good iron levels, because the baby will do one last final pull from you, okay? And so therefore what you don't then want is you're going into delivery phase and recovery from that, whatever happens with that whole thing, with, you don't want low iron or low iron stores. And I think this is why some women get very tired in that last few weeks of pregnancy. Obviously there's other reasons as well, but I would be insistent about speaking to your doctor about that, because what they tend to do is when you're nearing that point, they don't always do regular testing. So if you're very tired, particularly also if you feel like you're not, like you feel like your brain's not working as well as it was, that sort of thing, get your iron and ferritin check, your stored iron. But what we do is we always put a good dose of natural iron in our multi, but we also sell separate iron, and you can book for a consultation. You can tell us your iron figures, your numbers, and we can say, right, you need this much extra, because we're thinking about you. We're thinking about iron loss after delivery, and we're thinking about your immune system, your energy. Even just if you feel breathless as well, that tends to be a sign that maybe your iron's a little bit low. So sort of a bit like this. And that's really all about having the most easy, straightforward first few weeks of your new gorgeous baby. And just it can be tricky anyway. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for you.
Yeah. So just to recap on that, because I think that's a really good point. The iron in the supplement, everything's in there. That's a safe level for everyone throughout pregnancy. Because I don't think you don't want too much in the beginning.
I would say iron it's quite difficult in pregnancy, because it starts to get pulled quite quickly. You've probably got more of an issue to try and keep the levels up sort of constant. Not so much in that second trimester where the baby goes a little bit more into a slower pace of development, which is normal. But I think making sure that you have levels, checked towards the end of the pregnancy, we can help you work out how much more to take if you need to. And then actually, having given birth, if you decide to breastfeed, if you want to and can, then we also sell our breastfeeding support. And that is specific to encourage breast milk production, but also not just general production, but also producing really good quality like milk. You know what I love for breastfeeding is ghee, because you want that nice yellow thick breast milk.
Grounding, super nutrient dense. So basically this is what I took, this and the breastfeeding complex after I gave birth. And then I kind of tailed off on the breastfeeding complex. I take it kind of every time I walk past it randomly a couple of times a week. But then I stopped taking it when I was pregnant.
You wouldn't use it in a pregnancy, but also if you have so let's say you've got a baby or toddler that you're now wanting to wean, we would say you'd either need to reduce the dose or take it out, but still keep the pregnancy multi in, because if you carry on using that, it's really good at making milk. So if you're wanting to close the factory down a bit more, then come off that. And I think the other thing is also to say that is a really important component is to make sure that your omega-3 levels are really good. And I think that I'll answer some questions around safety. So I think sometimes people will question taking an omega-3 product in pregnancy, which is a good question. So I would never recommend just buying a standard one, because it could have vitamin A in it, for example, or it doesn't have the right ratios that you need for mum and for baby. But because it's tricky to get to consume enough oily fish, and also the thing is, oily fish can be rich in heavy metals. So in pregnancy, even though normally I try and say actually try and eat more fish, it's limited officially. So supplementation is important. And actually, again, like with the iron, the baby will do a massive pull on your reserves for its brain, for example, and other things. And so you want to make sure your levels are topped up. And of course, if you're vegan or vegetarian, I would recommend taking a vegan oil, but it must be probably double the dose, because you don't get very high levels of EPA and DHA, which is a subcategories of omega-3, in a vegan oil, unless you usually double the dose. And flaxseed oil is not recommended, because you won't, again, that's quite hard to use. So an algae, for example.
Okay, so with the omega-3, I think when it comes to eating fish, I know that I've read in Henrietta Norton, the co-founder's book, she recommends about two portions per week of oily fish, because of the mercury, and obviously when you're developing baby's brain there, you want to be very careful. And then also with omega-3, my kind of research into it over the years is, it's a very difficult one to get right. It can be, you don't want to be eating rancid oils, or low grade or that's one thing worth splashing out on. I mean, we can just walk into a high street and go and grab something that says omega-3 on it, but I think for that one as well.
I totally agree. So our omega-3 is sustainable, because also these days, I think that's an important choice to make. So we use the Alaskan pollock, and actually since 2014, 2015, 2016, the Alaskan pollock populations come up because they treat it as a conservation area. They don't use these big trawl ships, and it's very fresh because they're taking it out of the sea onto the boat. They're freezing it really quickly, but also when they go away to all fish oil has to be processed. It's not a case of like you literally get the oil out of the fish and it goes straight into the bottle. That doesn't work. Yeah. But when we process it, we don't use any heat, because if you use heat, then you're going to make things rancid. Yeah, so we use a very sophisticated method where it kind of distills it using CO2. So it's completely natural. It's cold, and also we are really strict on. So everything has certificates to show that you don't have heavy metals there. So during that purification process, they take those out, but then you recheck the batch, and you've got like 0.0000 of things like mercury. So you know that you're taking a very clean product that's very fresh and very safe as well. Yeah.
Amazing. And also so important for our brains as well as baby's brain. Baby's pulling from us, and I know that this omega-3 can help with kind of brain fog, or I know it's a bit of a funny thing to call it baby brain at the moment, but you know, I certainly experienced lapses in forgetting where I put things, trying to make a simple decision about something, and there's so much on your mind anyway. Then if you've got sleep deprivation from other children, or from, you know, pregnancy, insomnia, etc. So the omega-3 is super.
And also,
super good for that.
if you feel like you're getting, you know, your joints more clicky, so you're feeling more achy, like almost a bit more inflamed, very dry skin, dry eyes, certainly, you know, hormones as well. So all your hormones, the backbone of that, so like the raw materials for the cake, a component of that is using those oils. So if those oils are low in your diet, you can't make the raw materials. And I think certainly even in your postpartum time, what you're wanting to do is protect against low mood, you know, feeling not so great, you know. Also omega-3 is important for the immune system. So again, if you feel like you're now postpartum, but you're kind of run down, you're a bit creaky and achy, you've got dry skin, you can't remember stuff, and you feel like a bit, you know, there's an aspect of that will probably be around looking at essential fats like omega-3. Yeah.
Okay, so you got omega-3. We talked about ghee earlier, and then if you're vegan, you want to look at not flaxseed oil. You said.
I would use an algae oil, but you tend to double or triple the dose of the product, because essentially what it is it's very difficult to get high doses of EPA and DHA out of an algae oil. So that's also why I tend to say to some vegetarians who probably wouldn't eat a piece of fish, and say, look, if you could break your own rules for the next 9 to sort of 12 months, it would be an easier way of you, even if later on you go back to your own, you know, from before. But I think that's also why, you know, and you'll notice pregnancy also is about being in touch with the body, about being intuitive as well. And therefore, if you need to make changes to your diet based upon what feels right, then just go with that rather than stick to the rules of what you thought you should be doing or not, you know, like a mantra.
And I think a lot of these things are, you know, we do what we can, and we make the best decisions where we can. Because I think for some people who might be tuning in now, who might be already, you know, halfway through their pregnancy, haven't taken certain vitamins or minerals, or haven't looked at the quality, or haven't even considered it, or have been throwing up for the whole time. There was days I just couldn't put anything in my mouth. You know, I just didn't want to take tablets, and I just didn't, knowing that it was better to be less stressed about these things, because obviously stress inhibits your ability to absorb and to digest anyway. And for anyone who's nearing the end of their pregnancy, like myself, starting now, knowing that you're then feeding into that postpartum period, or even if you're in your postpartum period, you know, just suddenly kind of recognizing, you know what, I could do with that support. Whenever we just do what we can do
exactly
now.
And if you are in those last stages now, or you've just had a baby and you're now early stages, I think my biggest message is to say you've just got to super nourish yourself. And it's actually not a selfish thing to just put the baby first, and put, in a way, if you think about it, the baby's relying upon you having yourself together and feeling okay. So it's almost like it's your little team together look after each other in that way.
I mean, for the first 7 to 9 months, the baby thinks it's you anyway, you know, so that's so important. If you're loving on this baby, you've got to love on yourself. And I think there's a big movement now, you know, we talk about this postpartum period as being one of the most important parts of pregnancy, because it's a chance to, you know, it's the depletion of the mother. She's given everything for this baby. We have to give it back. And for so long, we've been kind of running with this, as long as the baby's healthy, as long as the baby's healthy. But if the mother can't, you know, the mother is the main provider of emotional needs, etc. Usually during those early stages, and we're no longer supported by villages or even you know, bigger family units. Then yes, I think so funny. 2 comments have come in, even though, hi Gwen. Is it better to take cod liver oil in the evening rather than morning generally? How did your question come in there? But we'll take it.
Yeah, should we talk about folate actually as well, and folic acid and folate? Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, let's a little history lesson here. So we know we need
I'll just give a quick background on this, because I spoke to, this is one of the things that's been bothering me for so long. I know that folate is the food grown state, right? So we all hear about folic acid, folic acid, folic acid. I think before I was in my 20s, not even thinking about children, I knew about this folic acid. And then over time I realized folate is the natural form of this. But when I read the ingredients and supplement bottles, they all say folic acid.
Yeah, so okay, so history lesson. So probably since the 40s, 50s, we've kind of started to understand that if we don't have enough folate, you can end up with things like spinal bifida, for example. So that's where that comes from. Then you've got this kind of mass public health drive to make sure women have folic acid. So for a lot of those women, if you think about mass population, that's probably going to be okay. Folic acid is not natural by default. So the idea on a public health drive was to basically think, right, what can we give somebody that's probably easy to give them? Okay, so the concept of that's where the synthetic concept comes from, yeah, and that can help lots of people. The tricky thing with that is that when you take folic acid, you actually have to convert it into folate, which is what you'd find in food. And for lots of women, they won't make that conversion properly. And if you don't make the conversion, so you can't change that. You're born like that. Therefore, so it's also the same with B12 actually. So that's why in some brand products you might see cyanocobalamin, which for some people like me, I can't convert that into methylcobalamin. So I have to have it in its pure form. Yeah. And you'd find those converted forms already in foods like steak, for example. Yeah. So in terms of supplements, you know, really the best thing to be using is a folate, because that replicates what you'd normally have in food, just at the level that you need it, which is why we supplement, yeah, rather than just rely upon food. But also it gets around any kind of, because you might not know, not many women are necessarily going to know this. And actually, you've got some women who are listening who might be nodding, because sometimes these things come up when you're trying for a baby, particularly if you couldn't get pregnant or you've got a history of miscarriage. So some women will go, actually, I've got to have folate. And the creme de la creme of ours is that you can get synthetic folate, because they can make that, but ours is natural methylated folate. So in the kind of the scale of stuff, you've got folic acid here, you've got some synthetic folate there, and then you've got natural folate here, which is great. Yeah.
What you've got, but
yes,
you have to write.
So on the ingredients table, but just to reassure you, any product that we sell, even if it's not for pregnancy, because it appears in lots of products, will always be in that special natural methylated form. And actually, some women, sorry,
and it's just no, I was just gonna say it's just because of licensing.
So it's annoying and confusing.
Just to add a layer of confusion on everything, is what someone owns that
in that
word,
way.
basically.
And some women might have looked at taking 800 micrograms of folic acid, but actually if you take 400 micrograms of our folate, you're going to get more bang for your buck anyway, because it's better absorbed. So it's still safe to use. The other thing I think is worth mentioning is the importance of vitamin D. So we include the government recommendation, which is 10 micrograms of vitamin D. If you were pregnant, obviously, like through the winter time, so from October onwards, I'd still say kind of now until the end of this month, vitamin D is super important because obviously your source is going to be either the sun or supplements, and winter sun doesn't give you the strong rays that you need to make vitamin D. So we put the kind of a good level in that product, but if you need more, you can supplement more on top as well. We can also help you with that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely, and that's where that 15-minute call will come in. Useful.
Yeah, and vitamin D
pre-chat. I just thought I had a crunch there, but it's a plant.
People think, oh, vitamin D, I need it for the immune system. That's true, but vitamin D, when your little fetus growing, what it's doing also is actually laying down very strong systems which are separate from just thinking about you, like protecting yourself against bugs coming from the outside. So because your immune system is there to make sure that cells don't change and go rogue, to combat inflammation, to basically give you a very secure setup. So if you've got a good, secure developmental immune system when you're younger and little, you're much healthier when you're older. And we are in, as you know, we're in a time now where like autoimmune diseases are more common, people are more unwell. So you're thinking about giving your little one the best chance. Also probiotics as well.
Yes. So just quickly, some things slip through. Folate and vitamin D included in your fertility support supplements. Yes. And then you can further top up with vitamin D if needed. So yeah, let's talk about probiotics quickly. So your product is called Biotic, which means life. Probiotic means for life, and obviously it's had so much PR over the last 10-15 years. And you know, for me, a healthy microbiome is a diverse microbiome. And we were talking earlier about food not being the same as it was many generations ago. We've also become into a very an obsession with being clean and sterilizing everything. And we know that as the old wives' tale of kind of eat dirt for restricting your microbiome. Unfortunately, dirt is now full of all kinds of pesticides, and don't want to go into that kind of depressing area, but in general we need to have a diverse microbiome. And a lot of food that's bought prepackaged is either nuked in some way or what's the word, iodized? I can't remember the word, but I know that some fruits and vegetables they have a process applied to them.
I know what. To prevent, because otherwise they go off and chips and stuff just doesn't go on. So you notice like those experiments where you get some foods and you're waiting for them to get mold on them and they don't get any mold, and you're like, ooh,
they don't. I've had this problem with plums that never ripen. They just don't go there. They kind of turn into foam. Like you're waiting for the day to get juicy and sweet, and they just were plucked too early, and then I completely forgot what the word is. I need to take my omega-3s. It's irradiated. They get irradiated. So, and we now know the microbiome is revealing the many ways our inner environment can affect our body's physiology. So our digestion, our immunity, our metabolism, our development, and even our behavior. So that's why they call this the second brain, our gut. I even read that there's a 50-50 split between your inner environment and your outer environment affecting your personality. So it comes from
they used to think in pregnancy that this was a very sterile situation, and now we understand with the pregnancy microbiome, and is that this is important for developing your baby's own gut, which means then immune system, brain function, like whole body health. But also you're thinking about the woman, looking at research, looking at, say, preterm birth as well, or the health of the vagina and, say, fertility. So actually, if you go further back, you're thinking about vaginal health and conception. Actually makes a big difference. So I've seen situations where if you correct someone's microbiome, the vaginal microbiome, the main gut as well, they get pregnant, which is amazing. And then you're thinking about baby's health all the way through, so the immune system. So even things like, it's been shown that you've got less of a chance the baby develops allergies as a child, or as an adult, or ends up with things like, say, psoriasis or eczema, those types of things, or is more prone to getting chest infections. And particularly, obviously, you'll probably find this later on when your daughter is around, like, say, nurseries, like they're bringing stuff home more. So if you're wanting to give them a good chance, and so I recommend recommend taking our probiotic for pregnancy, during the pregnancy, but also it goes into that postpartum time, and good for breastfeeding, so that baby's getting lots of good bacteria through your milk as well.
Yeah. And I also read
Yes.
you can give it to your newborn child, so you can actually open a little capsule. It's a very small capsule, actually. So anyone who's adverse to capsules, I find Wild Nutrition very easy to take, because it's encapsulated, so you don't taste anything. There's a couple of brands that are more like a, how do I describe it? It hasn't got the capsule on the outside, so I could taste it going down. I could feel it when I burp, you know. So this is nice and easy, but then also the biotic is really small, and so you can actually open that capsule and put that into.
What I would do
formula,
is a few ways. So
milk.
open it on like a clean hand, lick your finger, do that, baby's mouth. You could also put a little bit on your nipple as well. Or if you're giving them a bottle, well, what I wouldn't do is put it in the bottle, because it can block the teat. So you know the baby syringe. So put a little bit of formula milk in a cup, put the probiotic in, syringe it up, baby's mouth, easy. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. And then also answering Gwyn's question, is there a good time? Is there an optimal time to take the
time?
omega-3?
Yeah, the multi and the omega anytime. Probiotics tend to be better away from food, because you're not mixing them up with you trying to digest while trying to. So also with our probiotics, they are gastric resistant. So we use a special natural technology that means that they'll actually get all the way through the gut, because the problem obviously with stomach acid and other kind of gastric juices is that they can kill the probiotic off. So it's important for that. Also, something to say as well is that particularly probiotics in pregnancy are really important if you do end up having an early baby, because the baby's microbiome actually needs that full term of the whole pregnancy to develop. So every week that you go back and they become preterm, you've got a little bit less of that developed. So in order for them to give them a good strong start like that as well, particularly probiotics, once they're born.
So that's a good gift for anyone to give a new mum.
And actually, sorry, I was going to say get them booked in for us, because we have longer consultations. That's quite a nice gift for a mum. Even if we have mums like so sweet, like lying in bed with a baby like this, but then on doing the pool, we'll take you in anyway.
Okay.
With a towel on your head, the baby.
But also, I think we know about supplements. We know about folic acid, folate. We know. I think there's more. Omega-3 is more known, but maybe not the whole probiotic. And
those bacterial strains are also specific to that life stage, because what you and I need now as adults, separate as things, and that is different. But what the baby needs and what you then need as a mum growing the baby or making breakfast, it's all different. And you know, what you need when you're like 15 years old isn't what you need when you're 75. So it's very specific, and they're all research strains as well, which is important.
Right, we've only got 10 minutes left before we get cut off, so let me just jump. I think we've covered look at me, I'm scratching now. Got into that
scratchy tummy.
Scratchy tummy, a slight kind of niggles. And if you see me move around, it's because I'm getting slightly kicked in hitting a nerve or my bladder. So what have we covered here from the questions that I put out on my stories yesterday? Vitamin D, we covered. Magnesium.
First of all, very safe to use in pregnancy and breastfeeding. A lot of synthetic magnesiums are like having an expensive poo, because they will just go right through you. That might be what you wanted, but I think I had one person who wanted a refund once, because they said, I haven't had a poo yet. And it's like, it's not that kind of magnesium. I'm really sorry to disappoint you.
Magnesium for the poo.
This is going deep into the cells. And magnesium, you always need a lot of magnesium, because it gets used up. So in general life, if you are busy, stressed, running around a lot, very physically active, you'll need it. You need it for muscles, bones, and teeth. But when you're pregnant, I mean, what are you making? You're making a skeleton. So you need that magnesium to help you absorb things like vitamin D and calcium particularly. So important all the way through. But also, if you're having a little bit of a stressful pregnancy, you're anxious, your sleep's not great, you worry about things, magnesium is so soothing and so calming and so like, you know, nurturing, just a great one for sleep. And you can put lots in, and if you want to do double dosing and stuff, we could talk to you about that. And you can put our separate magnesium alongside the multi as well. That's very safe to do. Yes.
The 2 indications for lack of
Yes.
magnesium.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
twitchy legs, even like funny, like if you nerves in your eyes, like do this. That's also can be iron and also the B-vits. So if that's going on, you might have a few things going on. But yeah, certainly. And if you know, I mean, I'm not pregnant, but I always take more magnesium if I have more of a sporty day, like more physically active, or I was particularly tired, or things like, I don't know, I live in the countryside, but you had to go to London for the day and go on the tube and deal with all that. I'm just, when I get home, I'm like necking the magnesium to just, you know, just calm everything down. Yeah.
And get ready for a good night's sleep. Folic and folic acid we've covered. Supplement for breastfeeding we've covered, because you have your breastfeeding support at Wild Nutrition. We talked about choline, essential nutrient. We talked about fish oil. So I think it's the big one is how to cope with nausea. So I kind of used a few methods, and for me it was to not snack, which I know can be some advice. For me, it was I had to just completely digest what I'd eaten, and even though it felt like my nausea kind of came just before I got hungry, and it came after I ate. So then my tendency was just to keep on eating, because I knew this was the one period of time that I actually felt great. But I think nausea happens for so many reasons, right? Is it a flush of progesterone? Is it the tiredness?
I would say it's probably all those things together. Yes, you're going to get some women who, unfortunately, even if they do all that, that's kind of, it was part of their deck of cards in life. Like you know, like say our current like Princess of Wales obviously has had it very badly. I don't know whether it was very bad with the last child, but you know, I think some women suffer more than. I think some women suffer more than others, and I think you made a great point. Is my best piece of advice is try out those different concepts of, say, snacking or eating a bigger meal but for longer, but you have to find what works for you. I also find that things like sucking on ice cubes is great. Like I'm a massive fan of ginger. I like real ginger baby, so I like things like fresh ginger where you grate it and make it into a tea. Or you can even like add that to water, coconut water as well, I find as well. So like these are things where, so you've got that side of it, but I also tend to find morning sickness can be worse if your nutrient status isn't very good. So particularly things like
tiredness, mine kind of came back every time I had a bad night.
So you know, if you didn't have a great day that night, you know, so it can be lifestyle stuff. So I think you tend to kind of start to go, okay, I know how to deal with this, because there's a few things that are going to work for me that might not work for somebody else, you know. But we can also, again, in consults, we can figure out you individually and not your friend or something else that you read and go, okay, I think we're pinpointing that thing for you. Yes.
Because it's such a, you know, it is a time where so much is going on externally and internally. So I think
and not pushing yourself. So I mean, what's tricky about early pregnancy, isn't it, that no one knows you're pregnant? You don't look pregnant.
How are you supposed to keep it quiet in that time when you're literally you're so tired?
That's when I find women that probably end up maybe doing some things where actually it would be easier later, because once you've got a big bump, people say things like, no, don't do that. Oh, no, you know, you go, you know. So you actually have to start thinking like you've got a bit more of a bump and put yourself first. So go to bed earlier, have a bath, look after yourself, because you made a great good point that it was worse if you didn't have good sleep. So I think
I remember you can't even metabolize you know, the great foods that you might be eating, the same way you said don't stress about cooking on the stove if it's going to add more to your day. The most important thing is rest, and
eat,
make sure
please just eat what works for you, because I've had so many women who get so upset and stressed and almost neurotic, worrying about oh my gosh, I had loads of toast, that's not very healthy. This is a short-term moment, and that's why the supplement's important, because even if you're living off toast, because that's all you can cope with, at least if you're taking your supplements, you're bridging those potential gaps that could come up. One big
thing in Ayurveda. They say it's better to have good digestion and a bad diet than it is to have bad digestion and a good diet, because you could be eating a great diet, but if you're not, you can't, it's just turning into waste in the body. So I think we've come to the end of those questions, and I think this is worth sharing. We've got a discount code called Wild Jasmine. I like that. And it's 10 pounds off across products, including subscriptions for new and existing customers. So that includes me as an existing customer. So the subscriptions mean basically like having your pot and then having it sent to the post in the packets, right?
Yeah, when the refills come, I haven't got a box to show you, but they come in those boxes that are flat, so they go through the letterbox. I think what's nice about that, particularly if you're in this life stage, you haven't got to think. It just arrives and that's it. And I would say, particularly once you've actually got a baby or a toddler and there's like business going on, just one tip with the breastfeeding support: if you're nearing the end of your pregnancy and you want to breastfeed, buy this beforehand, because what I tend to think is take it to hospital with you, like put it in your bag, because you just don't know if you're there for a week or something and they keep you in. You don't really want to have to get your partner to try and get it, because they're probably not going to be thinking straight either. So just order it beforehand, put it in your bag, and then you can start that as soon as you've actually given birth and that you're compass mentis to take a capsule, basically.
Alongside continuing with your new mother.
Yes, definitely.
Alongside the baby three.
And look, you could because of the consults, you can we just book in, so we can check you a month after you gave birth, 3 months, time goes on, because your needs can change. So I think also it's quite good, to just get a check-in to think, actually, I'm okay for that nutrient, but maybe I've got a gap here. So check, like, basically just book in and ask. We're really happy to help.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Lorna. I feel sad because normally I don't ever not let comments come into chats, but I know from talking to you, you and I have got so much to say. It was just going to be, and I think we've covered a wide area.
And Jasmine, I wish you the most amazing, joyful, straightforward experience for your second baby's delivery, and a wonderful addition to your beautiful family as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's getting real now. I've dialed everything back, but it was so happy to do this. And I get a lot of questions on it. So I hope for anyone who's listening in, who's thinking about getting pregnant, is in that postpartum period, or can pass this advice on this video. I'm going to be posting it tomorrow morning on my feed. I think it goes from Wild Nutrition today or maybe tomorrow, so it can be shared with anyone that needs to listen in. And I think that's the best thing to take away from this is you get the £10 off, which I'll be with Wild Jasmine code, and you've got those 15-minute consultations.
So you're not or you have a specific thing, don't worry, we can either answer an email from you or speak to you. And so if you're hesitant about what to get, don't worry, just have a chat with us and we can help you. Jasmine, thank you.
Right, all I've got to do now is say goodbye, and I've got to somehow make sure I don't delete this.
Jasmine, thank you so much.
It's been ages. Thank you,
everybody.
Lorna. Thank you to everyone that joined.
Bye.
Have a great weekend. Bye. Now where do I go? I press the cross. Bye bye.